All right, guys, how we doing? Sam with you on Tuesday, November 13th. We're kind of middle of the day here. I'm a little bit later on this one because it was a bit of a challenge here to get a count on this that fits. Right. So now this is by request, right? We, as I always remind you, members choose these. I don't choose them. So from the polling we've done this morning, there's a request to look at the dollar index. So I've got it up here. This is the 3 hour. Now, this is an interesting example. I can understand why members wanted to have a look at this. This is not an easy count. It looks easy at first, right? So it's actually a fairly good example of where you have to make a decision about how disciplined you want to be with your Elliott counts. Because when you first bring this up, so at first glance, it looks like, oh, piece of cake. 1, 2, 3, 4, and up we're going for the 5. That's what it looks like. But if you actually put the effort in to try and break this down and apply the Elliott Wave rule principles, you've got some difficulty in this. Well, first, you've got difficulty down here getting that 1 wave. You're going to have to allow for a very shallow 2 wave here, but you can get it. The ABC, I think we can make a pretty strong case that we get a 1, 2, given the very clear ABC that we get coming down. And then we've got this 5 wave impulse. And I thought this was also a fairly good example of something I could show you here, just because this is always where I would start. I grab that. Here, now I thought that was kind of interesting. So we've been working with the inside pitchfork as we've related to what's happening in crypto. So it just happened to be defaulted here. So if I go swing low, swing high, we'll note what happens here as we come down. We tag that median line to the tick right there. So that's on the inside. So just one more thing to look at there. Going, oh shit, how many of you thought to look there? Well, that wasn't actually what I wanted to show you, but just one more example of where that can be effective. So now what I wanted to do is so I started there and I went to original. I thought this is a fairly good example of, often I'll talk to you about these odds, right? So I always remind you, best odds in trading. If that pivot holds, we've got 80% probability of making the median line. Now, at first glance, you might think, oh, they're here. Now, look how long it takes before it gets there. But eventually, that 80% is realized. All right, we challenged it here, but we don't take out the low. So that just a good example there of, don't abandon. Oh, we didn't get it. Right? How long did that take? What was this low here from March to May? Right, it can take us up here on a 3 hour, but it is realized. So that's just something to keep in mind here. Those can take a while to get there. But boy, how good is it, right? I mean, if you're a buyer here now, so this was also technical, as I recall. We had the 786 there, right? Last stand. So we go deep we do break the 65, right? We know a 2 wave or a B wave often to the 786 as it's a push to challenge that low. They hold it at the 786, and there's damn near to the tick on a 3 hour chart to get that median line. All right, so that established. Okay, so let me pull this off here. So note here we're at the 4th target here off of this 786 and through. So now this gets a little tricky. So if you're just using your tools here, as we would, so here's our 1 wave, the proposed 1. Here's our proposed 2. So if I look here now, here we're coming up 272, 2618. We're getting pretty frothy for a third. Here's our high probability zone, but I think what we have to allow for is this. The subdivision here. So if this is on the larger degree, a 1, 2, well, we know we're looking for an impulse to get us to our third. So if we look here, we can get a nice 1, 2 here. It's almost identical. It goes 7, 8, 6 before we start up. Now, I can't ignore this. So 1, 2, I get it, and this is technical as well as I was looking at this. If this is my 1 down to my 2, well, I'm pretty hot again. So here's the high probability zone for the third here. But given I don't get a decent 4 here, I think this plays better as the 3, 4 to complete that 5. And then if I did the same thing and went for my 4 here, pardon me, get right on there. So I'm taking the length of the 1 projected from the proposed 4, and I get the 1618 damn near to the tick. Looks like it's a tick or 2 through it. So we've got a decent contender here for a third. So you look at that and go, oh, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? doesn't work, right? So again, this is what I mean by you got to make a decision. You know, do you give a shit about the Elliott Wave rule set? And you're like, oh man, that's a pain in the ass. Yeah, well, let's just go over here. Right? I mean, I understand that thinking. I just would tell you that sooner or later that, you know, the market will punish that because it's a laziness. How about it? We put it that way. If you're not willing to do this, you know, first question, why are you watching my videos? But second question is, if you're not willing to do that, you're going to end up with a count here that may, your probability zone's likely to be off, right? So, you know, maybe you get away with it, maybe you don't. It's just a question of how do you approach the market? Are you a disciplined Elliott trader or not? If you go, oh, fuck it, you know, if it works, great. If it doesn't, you know, I understand that thinking. But if you're going to apply the rule set here, we cannot finish this here. No matter how you count this, and it's problematic even here with the count that I have because we have to allow for a very, very deep 4 relative to this 2, but I can't get another count that works, and I've looked at pretty much every possibility here. Now that we've got this nice channel going on over here, I'm going to take that off for just a second. So if this is our 4, well, first problem is this doesn't look great here. I do get a new low here, so you're kind of having to force fit an A, B, and then let me break it down here so you can see a little bit better. You can make the case. It's there. You can get an A, B, C out of this. So we can go into an A, into a B, and then we actually finish the C down here. Right? This which gives us the diagonal to complete the 4. So I can get a 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and then I push down for the 5. So I can get an A, B, C here. I don't think we were technical on this in terms of the target. Yeah, well, maybe we were. All right, so here's 50. We get to, well, here's the front run on the target. That's likely where they took it. So we've got a little more volatility here before we come down to this low. But now coming off of that, so if we allow for this as the A, the A, B, C into the B, and then we get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, gives me the C. So I've got a completed correction down here, albeit we've got a short C. It gets a tick beyond this pivot here as our 3, 4, 5. But now coming out of this is where we have problems here. So it's just a straight blast off, right? So that's, if that's news driven, likely here. So I can get a 1 here, and then we get a fairly nice, pretty obvious here, even though it's deep for a B, right? We can get an expanded B wave there, but I think this plays better here as a 1, A, B, C into a 2. But then I can't finish here because I've got another A, B, C. So that well, we could have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into a diagonal for our A wave. I've got a nice A, B, C down here, right? But then I can't get a clean finish here. I can get a C wave here, but now all I've done is put in an A, a B, and a C. Well, so you can see it here what I'm talking about. So here's the A, the B, and the C to give us our third. So I think this fits better here. Right, this is deep as well. So we go 1, 2, A, B, C into a 3. Now here's where, again, it gets problematic. Again, looking at all the different ways we might count that, even if you thought A, B, C into a B, and we came down here for a C, for almost more of a triangle type pattern, it doesn't work because if this were your 4, right, and you had some sort of an odd-shaped triangle into the 4, well, then we overlap it over here. It doesn't work, right? So this has to be the 4, so we can go 1, 2, A, B, C into a 3, A, B, C into a deep 4, but we don't overlap here, right? This can't be the 2 because of that overlap. So if this is the 2, you know, I don't love it, right? But I can't get another count that fits there. At least as I've been through every variable I can think of. A, B, C into the 2, A, B, C into the 3, A, B, C into the 4. Now you got to allow for a very deep 4. I understand that, right? But technically we're not violating any rule set here. We just have an abnormal shaping here, so that count ends up looking like this. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, and it looks like we're going up for the 5 to finish that. Now is that good symmetry? No, it's not. It's not great. Oh, shit, I can't even compress that anymore. That's as tight as I can get it. Let me go to a 2-hour. All right, it ain't great, but I can't get another count that works there. So again, you know, it's just a question of how disciplined do you want to be with your Elliott tools. You say, oh, shit, what do I care, right? I mean, I understand that, right? If you want, but otherwise, what we can I think anyone can look at this chart and realize that we're finishing something here. As I've got it counted, we're finishing the 5 here relative to this 3, 4. So if we think about, okay, well, shit, man, why does any of that matter? All right, well, let's think about our targets. If this is the 2, and this is the 3, and this is the 4, well, we're through the first target. All right, so we're approaching second target here. So you kind of look and go, well, what algo doesn't care about that Elliott count, right? So here's the one that if you don't care about that detail, then you go, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're at the 38, there's the target. You know, I mean, there's a case to be made for that thinking there, right? That you know, screw that. Yeah, I understand it, right? So there, 3, 4, we go up for the 5. You know, is it creating a problem for you to not have this resolved by Elliott rule set? Maybe not. Maybe not. If we think about where we're headed next here, so if we think about this, so if we're looking for a relationship in a diagonal, we'd be looking for it between the start of the 1, the pivot of the 3. Well, even that is unusually deep for a 4. Well, here's our first target there, maybe. Maybe. We might look this way as well, just again using the tools that we have. We could take the length of the 1 projected from the 4, putting it up here. Well, here we're just tagging the 618. If we're going to keep going, we're getting into a, you know, unusually high range there relative to what I'm proposing is the 4. You know, it's just it's a tricky one, no question. I understand why members wanted to look at this. So you kind of have to make a judgment call. Now you can keep an alternate, right? So you might, because this is problematic. I don't care who you are. That's going to be problematic to get a clean Elliott count on this. So you might, regardless of whether we know here this is fairly clean so far. So we can get a 1, 2, we can get our 3, 4, and even that potentially is subject to getting relabeled because we might this could be 3, 4, 5. We could end up, we know we've got a diagonal. So let's focus on the pivot off of this low. So if we work from this section here, well, we can get a 1, 2. I can get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into that third. We don't overlap. So I get an impulse here in the third, but coming down here, now I've overlapped the proposed 1, so I know I've got a diagonal. All right, so now, you know, you might rethink this. Well, do I want an impulse in a diagonal? No, I don't. So you might relabel this depending on what happens, right? So there's some variable here. So the third could easily be here. So I show you that because if we take this length here and come down to here, well, we just barely qualify here. So this is why this is a candidate, and this could be, we could have this. Certainly we could have A, B, C into that, right? Probably more likely if we're going to finish, as we're finishing here with a diagonal. So we get 1, 2, 3. This is why I had this initially labeled as the 3. So I can get an A, B, and I can get my C there, A, B, C into my 4. So if I project from my 4 to my 5, commonly in a diagonal, you'd be looking for 100% the length of the 1 projected from the 4. If we're going to go beyond this, well, if we're going to go beyond the 618, right? So here was the first one. So, you know, again, in a diagonal, we'd look for something technical between the start of the 1, the pivot of the 4. You know, we're not to the tick, but that's the range you'd look for it. Here's our target. So if this has got that last little push up here, we likely are setting up to be completing something. Right? Something completes up here. Right? So understanding that we might be relabeling this again if this is going to keep going. So then you might change this so the third would come over here. So we'd have A, B, C. Right, that's, it's not obvious. And now from this low, I got to allow for a shallow 2, 3, 4. It's not terrible. So again, if I just grab my 2 to my 3, so I'm getting a nice confluence zone up here. So I've got a few things that I might consider as targets. I mean, you can see here now in the 2 hours, so the size of the oscillator here and the RSI getting pinned up here. So that's likely, well, let's look at it in context. That's likely the third. So note here what we see. I don't even know what I've got under there, but note here. So on the larger degree, you're making the assumption that this is the third, right? So if we go, look at, so here, let me do it this way. let me get a straight line. So if we go, if this is the 1 here, and this is the 3rd, well, we got a little bit of a problem there because this is hotter. Right, so this actually is hotter than this. So it looks like you might go 1, 2. If you were focusing on the oscillator, this could be your 3rd, which kind of brings you back to the idea. Let's move this off. That you may be relabeling this. If oh God, Trading View. Oh, that is my #1 bitch with Trading View. Okay, so if this is going to go up here, so we could have A, B, C. Actually the symmetry of that may be maybe a little bit better. So ABC plays for the time being. Now we're going to come up here and get a reaction up here. So what do you do with it here? So certainly here it's buyable, looking for that range. That's nothing wrong with that. 97, 90. You know, what are we here in this range here? 97, but we're up here at that's almost a full point. So that's, you know, if you're looking for an excuse to get long, that's not bad here. I think so whether this completes as a 3rd or completes as the 5th, there's likely a reaction up here at these algo targets. There's likely a reaction, and then the depth of it will help you determine whether or not we're going to relabel this as A, B, C. You don't have, let's think about that in swing relationship. So if we're going to get that, if this is the A and this is going to be the B, well, now that's interesting. Right? So here the 100% essentially at the same target as our algo target. All right, so this is definitely an area we want to be paying attention to, as we have definite confluence up here. So let's pull back out and think about, well, are we completing? Well, we certainly have the ingredients to be completing something. Right, so 1, 2, now as I have it 3, 4, we've got this unusual shape here, but more than likely, even if you did just something like this. So how does that look? All right, we get any structure here? That's a fairly nice looking channel here. A little throw over to, right? So we're basing it off of that. So could we be going up to those levels? Well, this is certainly going to be a tell. Now think about where we are there. That's kind of half in the middle. Again, back to what can we measure? So if we take the length of the 1 and project from the proposed 4, my 4 is over here, and then pull this over. Again, just looking for confluence. Again, here we are at the 1618, 272. I mean, that could, there's targets up here that would be of note. All of these potentially targets up here that are just based off of those swing relationships. Let me pull that one off here. You know, for that 2 hours, so this channel seems to have it fairly well framed. I would, of course, add, yeah, let's pull this one off just to clean up the chart. I would add this pitchfork here. So if this is my 1, and again, I've got the inside. Let's go to original. Okay, so that's kind of an interesting example. Note here, so we do not make the median line. Do I have that spot on? You really want these right on those pivots. Bear with me here as I get that dialed in. Okay, so a failure. We have a corner pocket. Let me get my shit together here eventually. Okay, so we get a corner pocket off of this low. Here's our 1. All right, we're in between the 50 and the 618. So we have a good candidate for a 2. Now we don't make the median line here. Now remember what I showed you when we first started. That doesn't mean we may not get here. We may ultimately get here on this push. I wouldn't bet against that. Now this is a pretty deep retrace outside of that, so you might be thinking, well, let's get the 2 on that, see if that covers it. Yep, that gets it exactly. So 1, 2, here's the 200%, right? So we're just taking this channel, right? Here's the doubling of it. So we hold here for the 4, my proposed 4 of this swing, 1, 2, right? As we have it now, right? This is the 3, this is the 4. We're going up for the 5. So the fact that we held here is a good sign for the probability, because the setup is trading. Andrew's trading principle number 4, failure to make the median line sets a move equal to or greater than the move that failed to get there, right? So from this swing, you'd be looking for a move equal to or greater, but we don't get it. We hold this support here and we're back up. So that would you maintain the odds that we're going to get there eventually. It may take a while, but we're going to get there. Remember, it took from March to May to get there when we were looking at it on the 3 hour. So right now it looks like there's the odds would favor another swing higher to get to some of these upper targets and complete the pattern. So from this pivot right here, this perfect pivot at the 38 where you'd expect it, I'd have an anticipation that we're going to get to the median line at some point. So pull that off. So right now this is the 3. We understand this could end up getting relabeled as the 3. All right, so, dollar strength, you can just think about the market in general. If interest rates are going to continue to move higher, right, that's dollar friendly. So it looks like there's likely to be some more upside here. So this would be the next target. That's from the buy here at the 38 to the 9 to the algo target, damn near a point in that. So right now, because there's some question marks here as to whether or not this is the 3rd or this is the 3rd, I would wait and see what kind of reaction you get here at the 50. If that starts to sell off, let's pull some of this down here. So if this is 3, 4, and we're going to finish in 5, this ideally, you're not looking for an impulse here. You want to maintain that ABC structure so that we have the possibility that if we're going to finish, if this is our 5, that we're going to get something like this. So don't be surprised if you get a little retrace here because we've got right from the 2, ABC, ABC. We're looking for ABC to finish this. All right, so we maintain that diagonal format. This would give us that. This would give us a potential 5. Now, if we complete up there, think about what that means. So we'd be completing this entire swing. So let's pull this off. If that completes from that low, we know that a completed 5 count, if we do complete up here, this becomes your next target down here. So here's our next buy zone. So if we come down into that range, so right now, it certainly looks like there's opportunity on the long side as this continues to finish. And then we had the internal channel, where's my channel, that I had drawn up earlier. Looks like it's getting these pretty good. Let's change that color. So it looks like if we're going to get one more up here, maybe something along these lines. So if this is going to go up here and we're going to finish this here, I would tell you to wait for the 50. I would let this complete whatever it's going to do here. If we get a big push here, we'll know that the count looks like it's right now. If we come down and then have another kick, then we know that's just the ABC finishing of the 5. But no matter how you slice it, we're topping to some degree. Something is completing here off of this low. We're heading towards completion of this entire move, no matter how you slice that. Something is completing up here. So where's the opportunity? Well, I'm not one to be trading the dollar index myself. I'd rather trade the euro or the yen, which make up the bulk of this, right? You might lean into the euro rather than the dollar index. But in terms of just the broad market and where the dollar index is likely heading, this kind of gives you this can be something that can help you with regards to any other currencies that you might be looking at. So this is not an easy one. So shit, I've been talking for 23 minutes. I'm not giving you a trade, but hopefully the value here is the thought process of going through this, trying to identify if there is a trade here. I know a lot of people come here, they want to see, oh, fuck it, man, just give me the trade. Well, that's really not what we're about. I'm trying to help you, go through that thought process of how you would analyze this. Where's the opportunity? Where's the next trade? Is there a next trade? Here, for certainly, right? Again, we have to get the pivot up here. We don't have that pivot. I'm just hypothetical. If we're going to finish up in this range around 99, the next trade setting up is the full 50 from the swing low to the swing high. This it's even here, just using the swing, if that 3 is properly identified here, what happens here? Right? Oh God, that's annoying. What happens here? Is that our pivot high? I'd wait to see rather than try and chase the long here. If you get a decent reaction there, then I think there is a reasonable trade setting up for a little ABC to come down to get one more kick up. All right, guys, that's a kind of long-winded explanation. There's not a big payoff here. Sorry, I call them like I see them. That's how I would go through that entire process. And at the end of the day, there's not enough there to offer you a trade. I would wait and get more data so I can be more comfortable in what I've got here, because this whole thing has been a bit difficult. And it's certainly possible I have the count wrong, right? I'm never one to advocate that my count is the right count, right? Again, that's always the conundrum with Elliott Wave, right? So I'm sure Elliotticians will be looking at this going, oh, no, that's all wrong. Right? You know, again, it's not about my count being right. It's, can you go through that process? Are you willing to put that effort in? If you're not, well, then you're not watching any longer. You left long ago. If you are, well, that's the work you've got to put in to try and get a handle on where's the next probability zone where I can take advantage of all of this history, which is the only reason you do this, is get that history. Where's the probability zone? What happens here? All right, I better stop talking. Okay, guys, that's everything I can offer to you there. I'm sorry I can't just hand you a trade that's setting up. I just don't think it's there yet. All right, maybe I have one more today. Be back later.